Gaming is a weird world. It's just that simple. And every month, we deal with it. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, the weird gaming stories of August 2019. Starting off at number 10. Hey, have you ever wanted to race a hovering toilet against other hovering toilets in a race? That's this. There's a new toilet racing game called Running Wild Toilet Suit Race Toilet Shooting Star. It is a long title, but it's definitely one that you know what you're getting, because it's that. There's 5 different racers, from a Japanese one, to an American one, to a French one, to a Germany one. The Germany one is the only one with a steering wheel, but it's not hooked into anything, he's just holding a steering wheel. Now, Gran Turismo, this is not, so I hope you're not expecting anything particularly realistic about it, but the instant you see it, I think the fact that it's kind of a Mario Kart style weird game becomes pretty obvious. It's silly. It's actually more than, it's ridiculous. There's no reason this should exist, and that's probably the reason it exists. It's beautiful, it's amazing, it's a toilet kart game. Moving on to number 9, cosplay often involves an extremely weird amount of dedication, and this is no exception. A full-blown Final Fantasy X cosplay group published a bunch of photos that flat out look like they're from a video game. Now, we're highlighting this as weird because it's not just a weird level of dedication. We've certainly seen weirder, but they just have this otherworldly quality to them. And I'm gonna go ahead and say they're weirdly awesome, weirdly pretty, weirdly just a gorgeous thing to look at. It's weird that they managed to pull this off. And let's just go ahead and say, like, the surrealist approach that they took, it just really looks like Final Fantasy X. Even though technically Final Fantasy X's graphics were significantly less detailed than that, it reeks of Final Fantasy X. Really well done, guys. Moving on to number 8, a $13,000 NES cartridge that was not sold to the public was found in the bottom of a Safeway sack that a collector brought into a store called Pink Gorilla Games in Seattle. Now, to explain exactly why it was worth so much, it was something of a major collector's item in that it is a Nintendo World Championship 1990 cartridge with a slew of chips on it, all holding timed versions of very popular Nintendo games. Now, the seller that brought in the games to sell at the Pink Gorilla Games store had no idea how much it was worth. When they verified the authenticity of this cartridge and made him an offer for $13,000, he was taken aback. They could have easily offered him $20 and he probably wouldn't have noticed the difference. After doing their due diligence, Pink Gorilla then announced the find and ended up selling the cartridge at a profit to a wealthy collector. And they did it within 24 hours, which is insane. Cody Spencer of Pink Gorilla Games said, "I was surprised how many people were willing to throw that much money at a game. I haven't met that many super wealthy collectors who could drop that much. That's big." So keep in mind, they bought that thing at $13,000 and probably sold it at a pretty decent markup. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. Moving on to number 7, a DMCA troll on YouTube by the name of Christopher Brady issuing false copyright strikes, primarily targeting Minecraft channels, got his ass sued by YouTube. That would mean he'd have to be going pretty far. On account YouTube is pretty hard to get to do anything, and if you assumed that, you would be right. Brady wasn't just issuing false copyright strikes, he was using them to extort money out of people. What Brady would do is issue 2 strikes to a channel and then send an email to the channel threatening that if they didn't pay him a certain amount of money, $150 via PayPal, $75 in Bitcoin, in some cases $300, some here, some there, that he would issue a 3rd copyright strike, which would then take the full channel down and basically screw them over entirely, at least until the issue could get straightened out by YouTube. According to YouTube, his case was pretty wild on account he used at least 15 different online identities in order to serve these copyright infringement claims, and in pretty much every respect, this is fraudulent behavior. On some level, it's probably identity theft, but most importantly, at least in YouTube's eyes, this ended up taking a bunch of money out of their pocket. So old Christopher Brady's probably pretty screwed over this. And just on that note, don't do anything like this. It's the ultimate dick move. And I hope that it causes YouTube to decide that, hey, it's time to maybe take copyright trolling seriously and fix this on our platform. Because this is something a lot of people deal with. And moving on to number 6, a Super Mario Maker 2 level absolutely pushed the limits of the platform in that it took a game that is intended to make Super Mario levels, specifically 2D side-scrolling platformer levels, and made a first-person adventure game with it. Yeah, it's wild. If you've ever played an older game like Wizardry or old Might and Magic games on the Apple II, you know exactly what kind of game we're talking about, but a Japanese creator's 3D Maze House and Tom Hall of Doom, Anachronox, and quite a few other games found this level and shared it on Twitter, which just basically kind of made it go quote-unquote viral. It's amazing. It uses this bizarre system of pipes and other items to do the transversal, and it even has a mini-map. The level's not like super hard or anything, you'll be able to figure it out if you want to, but if you're aching for something that reminds you of old Phantasy Star, for instance, or any number of many different 80s games, it's exactly what you'll want if you're looking in Mario Maker 2. Coming in at number 5, a Fallout 76 player used glitches to build a base underneath the world. That is to say, kind of underground, except it's actually in the glitched area of the world where there is nothing. You might call it the Nether, and because of its position, it isn't attacked by any mobs, except for one or two stray ones from time to time. And when player characters come, they're usually there to marvel, to look around, and if they're a griefer, they're easy to get rid of. The player, Mrs. P123, just deletes the ground from underneath them, and they fall to their doom. It's actually a really clever use of a glitch, and hopefully Bethesda doesn't stop stuff like this from happening, on account it's some of the only actually cool stuff in Fallout 76. Moving on to number 4, Kyle Giersdorf, also known as Booga, was recently crowned the 16-year-old World Cup solo champion of Fortnite, as in his bracket in that mode, he's the world champ in Fortnite, and he was recently swatted live on stream. This has actually resulted in people dying before, so it's not to be taken lightly. You may remember the high-profile court case in 2017 in which a Call of Duty game dispute led to a man being swatted and he was actually killed by the police. This is weird not only because he's the world champ, but because this is still a thing that's apparently fairly easy to do on account it's a 16-year-old kid some random decided needed to have a visit from armed police. Moving on to number 3, you know how you're not supposed to play Pokemon Go in your car? Well, you know, among the people who still play Pokemon Go, you know you're not supposed to do it in your car, right? Well, in Washington State, the police noticed a car pulled over and went up to see if he needed assistance. They noticed that he had a foam block that he'd carved a bunch of rectangles into where he'd filled with smartphones and was playing Pokemon Go on each of the smartphones. Yeah, you know how they say don't text and drive? This is so much worse than texting and driving. It's 8 games. 8 video games. They didn't actually catch him driving with all of these, but it's reasonable to assume he did. However, they weren't able to issue him a ticket. He simply agreed that he would put the phones in the back seat and not have them up there while driving. Don't do this. This is dangerous, and you just shouldn't even consider it. It's wild. Don't play 8 video games while you're driving. Coming in at number 2, there's so many people playing WoW Classic, the new version of the old game, and I'll just go ahead and say, like, it's awesome that there's this many people playing it, but it's difficult to get quest items. So, in the spirit of WoW Classic, which is a game of a different time where people treated each other a little bit better for the most part, in that spirit, people are lining up to quest items to make sure everybody has the chance to pick them up, which is awesome. Like, it's one of those nice little heartwarming things you don't really get to see a lot of when you really only see players for about 5 seconds before you kill them or they kill you in Fortnite, for instance. You go, WoW Classic. You bring that positivity back. Thank you. And finally, coming in at number 1, 2K Games released a trailer for all of the microtransactions in NBA 2K20. And let me just go ahead and say it's downright bizarre. It's like detailing packs of cards, but let's just be honest, it's loot boxes. And also various gambling minigames, like just flat out gambling minigames. And puts these really weird fake reactions in the bottom corner of people like really enjoying these loot boxes and gambling. And the world is ending. That's the only conclusion I can come up with. It's the apocalypse. It's bad. And I'm not just talking about the acting, but the acting's pretty bad. I just mean overall, it's horrific. This should not exist. Wow. And moving on to our final story, apparently Minecraft and Cuphead will be on the Tesla car screen in the near future. I don't know why. Like I talked about that Pokemon Go guy playing too many games while driving. I don't know that I trust the self-driving mechanism enough to play Cuphead while I'm in the driver's seat. Also, I can't afford a Tesla, so there's that. What was some weird stuff you saw in the gaming world? Leave us a comment, let us know what you think about what you saw here. Click like if you liked this video, and if you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter @FalconTheHero, and we'll see you next time right here on GameRanx.